Grace to you, peace from God our Father, from our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen. Again, our text are those opening words of the second lesson, which read, "Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen." I want you to pinch yourself right now. I know it's a strange request. Don't pinch the person next to you. Just do it to yourself. Pinch yourself. I know, it seems weird, but just humor me. I want you to pinch yourself to see if you really are real. Now, I'm an old fan of the old television series, The Twilight Zone. And one of my favorite episodes is called Shadow Play. It's the story of this man named Adam Grant, who is played by Dennis Weaver. And Adam is an innocent man who, for some reason, has been condemned as a criminal and is now sentenced to death in the electric chair. His life is now this endless cycle of reliving those events that take place hours before his so-called execution. The show begins with Adam in a courtroom where the judge has just decreed that he is to die by the electric chair. And the next scene, it shows him there in prison where he is told by the warden that there is no pardon from the governor. And that's followed by a visit by the prison chaplain. He's given his last meal. The state attorney and a newspaper reporter all are there to kind of witness. He is led then to the execution room. He is strapped into the chair. A hood is placed over his head. You see the prison official just ready to pull down the lever, and the next moment it starts all over again. He's in the courtroom. The jury had just condemned him. The judge decrees that he is to die in the chair. And for him, this nightmare, this dream, begins again and again and again. And Adam, this character, he knows that he's not going to die. He's been through it so many times. He knows that he is dreaming, or he thinks that he is dreaming, or maybe someone else is dreaming him. But those events are so intense, so real to his life, that he finds himself living in horror, not knowing if he's ever going to wake up from this dream. Now, the science fiction TV show, the episode is really asking this kind of way out question. But the question is, are you real? Is your life really happening right now? Are you just some character in another person's dream? Or maybe your own dream? How many of you had dreams last night and you're wondering, is it possible that any moment the person dreaming about you will wake up and that will end your life? Or that you will wake up and find you're a different person and you've been dreaming about this character you all night long? I don't know, Pat, you're scaring us. Come on. You got to stop watching those science fiction shows, especially at night before you go to bed. It doesn't help you. And again, I have to kind of pinch myself and, yeah, I'm pretty certain that I'm not dreaming, and I'm pretty certain that you are not part of my dream or my nightmare. But it does raise up a more serious question. What is real anymore? With all the bad news that we seem to be hearing of tragedies in this world, would you kind of wish sometimes that it was all just a dream? A bad dream that you would awake and find it didn't happen? You know, we used to think going to Walmart, Going to the mall, even going to the church was one of the safest things that you could do. Nothing bad would ever happen. But I don't know if we'll ever believe or think that again. Because you really can't be certain of anything anymore, can you? I know they say the odds of you now being killed or hurt in a mass shooting is 1 in 1,110,154. I don't know how they figure that, but that's the odd. But it seems that those odds are going up and up, that it's greater chance, doesn't it? And I know for the last week and a half we've been listening to those stories about those 2 tragic shootings there in El Paso and in Ohio, and almost lost. And this was the fact that out in Orange County, California, 4 innocent people died in what was then said to be a stabbing spree by a person going about with a knife, stabbing and killing. And again, more examples. Domestic violence, terrorism, whatever you want to call it. And it seems like these senseless acts of violence are real, and I hate to say, but I kind of doubt if they're going to change anytime soon. I wonder if these random acts of violence is going to become the new normalcy, what we just have to learn to live with. You know what the hottest selling item for back to school is this year? It's a bulletproof backpack. They can't keep them in the stores and even online anymore. Parents are buying them and teaching their children how to wear the backpack, but also how to be able to flip it over so that you've got the bulletproof part in front in case it's needed. That's the #1 selling item for back to school this year. No wonder that in times like this, more and more people are kind of giving up on religion and even faith in God. What's there to believe in anymore? Does it matter? I still believe there are 2 things worth believing. Even if it does seem that society is going, as the saying goes, going to hell in a handbasket. And the 2 things that are real that we still can believe in is that God is real. And the second, that God still cares for you and has a plan for you and your life. Now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. I don't think anyone is ever again going to question or wonder, is there really such a thing as sin? Years ago, it almost kind of was one of the things, we don't really know if there is sin anymore. I've even heard theologians say that, but not anymore. Sin is real, and we know it, and we see it on the news all the time. What we don't see all the time, but what we do experience all the time, is the reality of God. Now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. By faith we know that God is real. By faith we know and we cling to the cross of Jesus as being real, as being the means by which God showed his love for us in a very powerful way. And we know in our lives the power of God's love and forgiveness. We know because we have experienced it, that even if or when you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, that God is there. that God is leading the way out of the shadow of death, that God is behind you, protecting your backside, that God is on each side of you, supporting you and helping you to get through that valley of the shadow of death. Well, as I said, the last week and a half has really been bad. Those 2 shootings, now the stabbing I described you, and I don't know if you heard it or not. What happened, I think it was Friday night in Houston, Texas. An extreme example, I guess, of road rage, or maybe it's becoming the common thing. Of accident or a thing that took place on Interstate I-10 in Houston. If you've ever been there, that's one of the major interstates in Houston going east to west. And where this took place, Interstate I-10 is 16 lanes, 8 going east and 8 going west there in Houston. It's that bad. And they're not clear, but somehow or another, either there was a fender bender or 2 people had been involved in road rage, and suddenly the 2 cars come together, and one of the drivers jumps out, pulls out a semi-automatic assault rifle and kills both of the people in the other vehicle, and then drives off, and they're still looking for that person today. Where is God? The skeptics ask us. Where is this God that you think is so great and wonderful? And maybe you're beginning to wonder too. Is God real? Or are we just imagining and dreaming him? And if God is real, then why doesn't he show his power? Instead of just letting sin run loose in this world. If God really does love and care for us, where is he? Now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things we can't see. One of the great hymns of the Christian church is the hymn, "Built on the rock, the church doth stand." Listen to these words of that first verse. Built on the rock, the church doth stand, even when steeples are falling. Crumbled have spires in every land, bells still are chiming and calling. Calling the young and old to rest, but above all the soul's distress, longing for rest everlasting. And that hymn writer is saying that even when it looks like everything around us, even our support, church buildings and church building, even when that seems out to be caving in and going away because people are abandoning and leaving the church, this hymn writer is still telling us God is in charge. Even in the midst of the worst that it can get. And that is what faith is. Faith is knowing and believing that God is real, even if the steeples and churches are closing up and more people seem to be giving up on God and turning their backs on God and religion and walking away. By faith, we still believe in a God that loves us and a God that has plans for us. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. One more thought that I want to share with you about this passage. And that is that faith in God is not some guarantee. It's not some type of protective bubble that we live in, which means that nothing bad should ever happen to us if we have faith. I've heard that said so many times. If you have faith, you won't have all these struggles. And if bad things happen, then that means you better question your level of faith. I've heard pastors say that. And that's so wrong. And many people, I think, today almost look upon faith as some type of an insurance policy. You know, you take it out, you believe in God, but it's there just in case worse things happen. But that is not faith. But I've seen that done before. And I know Pastor Detta has seen that same thing too. Of good people who profess that they are Christian, that they have faith, but the moment one thing goes wrong or they begin to face tragedies or accidents or things happen in their life, that's it. They're finished. I'm finished with you, God. You didn't keep your part of the bargain, God, as if we have some contractual contract with God. Meaning, I'll do this, I'll go to church, I'll give offering, but on the other hand, I expect you, God, to do this and this and this for me and my family. But that's not faith. God does promise to forgive our sins. He promised to give us a new life after this life is finished with him in heaven. He promises that he will be with us as we walk through that valley of death in this life. He also promises that when things go bad and everyone else will leave you and forget about you, that he, God, will still be there with you and for you. But that's it. God does not promise that hardships and difficulties will never come. And that's not what faith is about. A faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. This is what faith is all about. It's trusting that God will never abandon you. That together, it might just be the two of you, you and God, but you will get through this life. On the other side of the grave, you and God will be inseparable forever. That death and sin and mass shootings and road rage and sickness and tragedies and all the other fears that we have will all be forgotten. It would just be you and God. In his name we pray. Amen. And now may the peace of God, which is above all understanding, may it preserve and keep us in our faith. Bring us to the joy that awaits us. Amen.